In a multi-billion-dollar semiconductor manufacturing facility, the ambient environment is controlled down to the submicron level. The air is endlessly filtered, scrubbed, and pressurized. Technicians pass through multiple airlock decontamination chambers before stepping inside. A single uncalibrated variable, a stray eyelash, a fluctuation in humidity, a microscopic speck of dust, does not just dirty the room, it initiates a catastrophic contamination event. It destroys months of microscopic physical fabrication. The environment is absolute. It has to be. Shift the focus to the architecture of the modern apartment. The lock turns. The door opens. A guest steps over the threshold, dropping their heavy bags on the floor. They are introducing uncontrolled particulate contamination into an ISO 1 certified biological decompression zone. It is minute 10 of the invasion. You cross your own threshold behind them. You drop your keys on the counter. There is a sudden, heavy release of tension at the base of your neck. The quiet in the room shifts. You stand there for a full minute, staring at the grain of the wood before turning on the lights. You do not think about why. What I keep seeing is that the modern professional operating in the extraction economy functions less like a community member and more like a cleanroom technician managing a highly volatile autonomic baseline. The open-door community model has collapsed under the weight of the public performance grid. We no longer live in neighborhoods where casual, unannounced visits act as a harmless social glue. Instead, the pattern I have noticed is that the home has become an energetic fortress. It is a highly striated microenvironment built for one specific purpose: neurological survival. Unannounced drop-ins register as access protocol violations. The friction originates at the perimeter. Consider the particulate tax of this breach. Modern homes are meticulously curated microenvironments. Your reading chair is angled precisely 15 degrees away from your work laptop to trick your brain into logging off. The lighting is calibrated to signal evening deceleration. Then, a guest arrives. The sudden, unbudgeted inflation tax of buying artisanal cheeses, extra toilet paper, and specific oat milks for someone who will be gone in 48 hours creates a tangible financial and spatial strain. And there is a specific reason why we let them in anyway, which I will get to. But first, look at the cost. The research on spatial sovereignty points at something that, once I saw it, I could not unsee. The finding, roughly, is that maintaining a public persona requires active, metabolically expensive suppression of authentic biological rhythms. The biological function of cortisol is inherently tied to how the home acts as a neurological regulator. What the evidence tends to indicate is that for many, the organism struggles to fully decompress while being actively observed. This points toward a specific thing, not the tiredness, the profound crisis of presence. The sheer existence of another human being feels like an active drain on core power reserves. You are probably experiencing this on a Saturday morning. It is almost always a Saturday, not a dramatic standoff. Just you, standing near the refrigerator, calculating how long a conversation will take. In the outside world, survival requires heavy psychological PPE, modulated vocal tones, curated facial expressions, a constant hypervigilance to remain palatable to the grid. The home functions as the sole facility designed for the removal of this suffocating suit. When you invite a guest inside, you are forcing yourself to wear that heavy psychological PPE inside the sanctuary. A guest is sitting on your sofa. You love this person. But you are sitting across from them, actively monitoring your facial expressions so they feel welcome. They walk into the kitchen. They open a cabinet looking for a water glass. Every sound of glassware clinking against wood registers to your neurological threshold as a micro-trespass. You are pouring a second cup of coffee you did not particularly want to drink, to give your hands an operational task. And the thing is, you already know you will be doing this for the next 48 hours. And what this does, or rather, what it keeps doing over time, is it bankrupts the facility. The panic that sets in when a guest announces a multi-day stay is almost universally misdiagnosed. Society tells you it is a character flaw, a failure of hospitality. I wonder if what is actually happening is less like being a bad friend and more like a biological yield crash alert. Your threat detection system recognizes that the presence of an uncalibrated human will halt all restorative processing. You have labeled your need for spatial sovereignty as selfishness, when it appears to be a textbook case of territorial anxiety, driven by dynamic boundary regulation. But I keep coming back to this. What made this isolation feel so necessary? When viewed from one angle, it seems like boundary defense. But the reality goes one level down. The exhaustion is not actually about the guest. It is about the fact that you forgot how to exist in the presence of another human being without actively managing their experience of you. You are not just protecting a sterile zone. You are protecting the terrifying secret that you no longer know how to just be while being perceived. You have made hypervigilant hosting part of your identity, which means resting in front of someone else feels like betraying who you have decided to be. That is not a habit. That is a story you have been living inside. Which is, objectively, a lot of biological weight to assign to someone just asking to sleep on your couch. But the system does not negotiate with couches. The extraction economy built this pressure. The systemic depletion of modern work leaves us with fractional energy yields, forcing us to fiercely guard whatever space we have left. That was the intelligent response to what was actually happening. But here is what I keep noticing. The decision to let the perimeter be breached anyway is maintained by habit. The mechanism is still running, not because the threat of social exile is still there, because you never asked the mechanism to check. What works better is shifting the logistics off-site. You execute off-site socialization, meeting exclusively on neutral ground, a restaurant. The external environment absorbs the energetic cost of the interaction. The restaurant provides the lighting, the food, the spatial calibration, and the cleanup. When the interaction concludes, you retreat to the energetic fortress, uncontaminated. The heavy suit stays outside. This requires the establishment of strict decontamination boundaries. 0 unannounced drop-ins. 0 prolonged stays that compromise the autonomic baseline. The sanctuary is not a venue, it is a perimeter. If there is someone in your operational grid who continually breaches this perimeter, not maliciously, just casually, because they operate on an outdated community model, you can forward this briefing to them without explanation. The protocol speaks for itself. You will probably still feel the instinct to open the door the next time someone asks. Rewriting an access protocol takes longer than understanding why it failed. But I keep wondering, what would it look like, specifically, to stand inside your own meticulously calibrated space and decide that the contamination risk is simply no longer acceptable? What version of you exists when no one is watching, and has it ever been shown to anyone? The door was never meant to be left open.